Well, I mean, it's that good then.
Oh, okay. I
It's
gotta
so
watch
good
it.
that it seems new. It just got on Netflix. That's why I was like, you know what I mean? Like it took Netflix a long time to get it, man.
I'm sure they probably been had it and they probably dropped it and then came back
Yeah,
on
you know
again
how
though.
they do. Yeah.
Yeah, they'll drop a
Um,
movie in a minute for some reason and just I don't know. It's
what
weird,
made me
but
think about it is you brought up rock and roll, and they kind of go into the story of Chuck Berry a little bit.
oh yeah.
Oh, you know,
And
I'm of the opinion that rock and roll was birthed in black music anyway. So
mm-hmm.
however you
And
want to
that's
go on the American music tree, it all has its
Well, it
origin in
was.
the same
It
place.
was. They
Right.
gave Elvis this whole crown for really, something that wasn't his,
No, you're right. I mean,
So
that's what cultural appropriation is.
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Why do you think they gave Scarlett Johansson the role of a Japanese woman? I'm telling you, it's kind of the way it is, right?
Or who was it? Was it Tom Cruise is the Last Samurai?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That was
I
that
don't.
was
Yeah.
yeah. Don't even talk about that movie with me. You can talk about that movie with me, man. As a Korean person, I have a very unique perspective on that movie.
Man.
All
I
right.
think
So
Brad Pitt was the Mexican or something like that. I think he was on
Yeah,
Once Upon a Time in Mexico or something. It's crazy.
yeah. It
all right.
happens.
All right. So we're gonna get into it,
All right.
and
Leave
yeah.
that in there.
Um.
People need to hear about cultural appropriation. Leave that in there.
Raised from the grave, time to wake up. Active in my faith, time to stay up. Watch me flip the switch like this. Watch me flip the switch like this. Raised from the grave, time to wake up. Active in my faith, time to stay up. Watch me flip the switch like this. Watch me flip the switch like this.
All right, so welcome to the Flip the Switch podcast, where we flip the switch on everything
Oh,
from
everything.
relationships to spirituality, freedom to identity, motherhood, fatherhood. We talk about it all. Listen, we are here to empower you. We are here to empower you. This is not just our podcast. This is your podcast.
This is your podcast.
And you know, I've been having. Let me just say this: I've been having a lot of fun lately between the motherhood series and the fatherhood series. We've been getting some real golden nuggets, some real wisdom, some real great advice and suggestions on just being encouraged. You know what I'm saying? So I look forward to, I know this is the podcast that I do, but I look forward to always listening back to it. It's different from relaying the message. You know what I'm saying? You hear the message and you relay the message. It's just two different things, man. So I'm looking forward to this podcast, not only just for doing it and, but I'm looking forward to hearing your story and then at the same time going back to listen to it again.
Yeah.
So we have a very special guest, as I always say. I think all of our guests are very special in their own unique way. We have a man by the name of Paul Kim here on the show with us. I wish we had like the whole audience clapping thing.
Yeah, we probably need
that
to
would be dope to have right now.
And post edit.
Sound
I think we could throw it in and post edit.
But welcome to the show, man. Welcome to the Flip the Switch podcast. How you doing, Paul?
Good, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Nice. So I've been told that we might take a little bit of time to get to the meat of the episode. So we're gonna try to get to his story a little bit sooner than what we do. Okay. But man, it is great having you on the show. I've heard some things about you, and it really intrigued me. And I'm just like, I gotta find out what happened with this, and why this happened. I am looking forward. Like, this is probably the most intriguing story that we're bringing to the show so far. Because I'm like, I need to know ASAP.
All right, let's hit it.
And so we do a highlight of the week every week, and our highlight is our guest. So let me highlight you real quick. I'll call him the great Paul Kim. He is a writer. He is a father. He is a minister. Used to be a pastor, right?
Yep.
Full on lead pastor.
Yeah.
And he is somebody that I call a vision giver. He looks at people, finds their gifts, and calls their gifts out of them. Very unique superpower. And I've seen him do it to people around me. That's the crazy thing about it. He's awesome at it. So great guy, good friend. He's introduced me to a lot of foods that I never had before. So I can't wait for you to hear this episode with him, man. He's gonna drop some gems on you. I already know
it. Nice. So listen, Paul, we got this thing called Random Opinion.
Okay.
As you already know. So let's hear it. You already know Dre's ready to argue. We've talked about this. He's argumentative for some reason.
Hey, I'm an argumentative person too, so it's fun.
Oh, this is about to be great. This is about to be great.
I'm gonna go ahead and delve into a topic that's very controversial. You and I talked about you playing basketball with your kids, so I'm just gonna come right out and say it. Kobe is better than Michael.
Oh, let's get into it. Let's get into it. Let's get into it.
I can't argue that. I agree with you. I agree with you.
Hey,
I actually just had that argument last week with
somebody.
Listen, I absolutely 100% agree.
You agree too?
Yeah, because here's the thing, man. Like, even though Kobe, he learned from Mike. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
When you see the highlights, if you like put them, right next to each other on the same screen or whatever, you will see like, yo, he took those moves from Mike. I just feel like, one, he made the moves look better, and two, he had a different type of adversity, so to speak, as far as like the other players and teams to play. It was just a different time, and it was something that I think Mike did not have to deal with. Just like Mike had things that others didn't have to deal with before him. Yeah. But Kobe, man, like it. I just had this conversation about a month ago, actually, maybe about a month ago with my barber. He feels differently. It is what it is. And his viewpoints are very much valid as far as how he kind of rates it, so to speak. And but man, like I still just feel like Kobe he was just the better man. Like I feel like if they played in their prime 1-on-1, Kobe would win.
I think
no doubt.
I feel like I'm looking at an elevated version of Mike when I'm looking at Kobe, especially the later on Kobe. I think he kind of practiced with Hakeem and got those post moves. Oh, he was nasty in the post during that time, man. So, yeah.
Well, I'm going to share with you 3 reasons that I never hear nobody else talk about.
Okay.
Okay. Of why I believe Michael Jordan is rated higher than he should be. Okay.
Ooh.
Number one.
Just said that.
Yeah. Because he's rated so high, that's why he goes above Kobe. Right? But I'm gonna equalize it out right here. So number 1, expansion teams. During Michael Jordan's era, there were 3 expansion teams in the East. And you know how expansion teams work, right?
Nah, I don't.
Yeah, so what they do is they set up a team and then they pick some players from other teams to start a new team, but then basically those teams are weak. So the Vancouver Grizzlies, the Toronto Raptors, teams like that, they were all in the East. And then they used to play them teams like 4 times a season. So that's an automatic 12 victories right there. There haven't been no expansion teams in the West during Kobe's era. Like, can you imagine what Kobe would do with 9 games just of a brand new team?
Oh, demolish.
He did 81. He did 81 against Toronto. You'd be talking about him with Wilt Chamberlain.
I know.
Okay. So that's my first reason. The second reason, 3-point line. During Michael Jordan's career, they moved the 3-point line in. And you could tell on Michael Jordan's stats, every year he had about a 20-something percent 3-point percentage, except for those 2-point plus years where it jumped up to 40%. They moved that 3-point line just inside of his long mid-range jumper.
Yeah, they did
Now,
move
tell me
lines.
this. If they moved that 3-point line in for Kobe for 2 years,
You know what he would have did from the line?
I'm just saying, okay? So nobody ever talks about that. No, everybody says, oh, he has a better shooting percentage than Kobe. I'm like, they were shooting in closer, and they moved the 3-point line in closer. The whole game was smaller.
Yeah.
What are they
Yeah,
doing
that's true.
nowadays with Steph Curry, and Damian Lillard?
They gonna try to move it back again
Right,
with Steph
right.
Curry.
That's what I'm saying. So that's reason number 2. Reason number 3, Craig Elo.
Who's that?
Exactly. And they show that Michael Jordan clip of him jump shotting over Craig Elo. Who's that? Like, that's the greatest game winner of all time against Craig
Are you talking about
Elo?
against Utah?
No, it's against the Cavaliers.
Oh, against the Cavaliers.
It's
Okay.
that white dude who tried to block Michael Jordan's shot, but he couldn't even get up in the air. I'm telling you right now, I could shoot over Craig Elo.
Dang.
Right? And I'm like, the greatest shot of Kobe's, clutch shot was against Phoenix. Remember that overtime win where he came down, got the ball, and get to the elbow? Yeah, Raja Bell and
They had 2 people on him.
his face. And then they ranked Michael Jordan's shot over Craig Elo higher than that. Forget that.
Wait, they do?
They show that all the time. You know the one where he makes that shot and then he does that fist pump thing?
Yeah, that's the iconic.
Yeah, that's his
shots
iconic
he got.
move.
Yeah, it is. I didn't even think about the opponent.
Wait a
like
minute.
that.
Hold up. Any
But I'm saying those are the three arguments that I will say that nobody ever talks about.
Wait. One person versus shooting over 2 people.
Right.
That's never greater than shooting over 2 people for anybody.
And actually, Kobe has done that multiple amounts of times.
Exactly.
Right.
But in that Phoenix game, I remember the heat behind that one. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
So anyway, that's my arguments. I know. People will probably argue with me. That's okay. Because like I said, I actually grew up watching both of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So my favorite Laker is actually Magic Johnson, but it's real close. Magic and Kobe, they're real close, right? But I grew up and watching them, and then I saw Michael ascending, and I saw the NBA do what they did. I don't know. I just feel like, ever since Kobe, things just got crazier, right?
Did you watch the documentary, the 10-part series, The Last Dance?
For Michael, The Last Dance?
Mhm.
No, I actually saw the first couple, and then all the craziness came out, and I couldn't focus on anything. There's all this other stuff that happened.
Yeah.
So
I think I'm on like episode 8 now, so I haven't finished watching it either. I got to go back and.
Hey, where's it at again?
It's on. Well, my father-in-law downloaded it on demand, but it's on. I think it came out on ESPN.
ESPN Plus or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Is it on
But,
like YouTube or anything?
No, I don't think it's on YouTube.
No.
You could check, but I don't think so.
I need to watch it. I mean,
Right.
it's
good because you get to see like the mind of Michael Jordan. I mean, I kind of knew he thought like that, but it's good though.
Now, don't get me wrong. He is great.
Yeah,
he is great. But we're talking about the top 5 players, right?
Yeah, it's just in comparison to Kobe.
Everybody always puts Michael Jordan at number 1, and I'm like, no, there are at least 3 players I would rank higher than him.
Dang.
Well, I want to hear the other. I want to hear the other 2.
Who else?
Well, number one, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Okay.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I ain't fighting with you on that one.
I'll tell you right now, he never lost. He won a championship every year he was in high school. He won a championship every year he was in college, except for his freshman year where they didn't even let freshmen play. Remember back then?
That don't count.
So he has 3 championships instead of 4, but that year, his freshman squad demolished the UCLA championship varsity squad.
Dang.
On campus. And that's when they got rid of the dunk rule because they saw what he did to the national championship team as a freshman.
And I know
that's when he developed this skyhook. And then he comes to the NBA with the Milwaukee Bucks. When's the last time they won a championship?
Before him, I know, yeah.
Exactly, it was him. And then he comes to the Lakers and win 4 more.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm telling you, as a basketball player,
And
ain't no
scored the
one
most points
dominated.
ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that was Wilt.
Well, not in the game, but he scored the
Greatest
accumulation
scorer
of
of all
points.
time. Right.
Yeah, greatest scorer of all
Overall,
time.
yeah.
But name one person who's dominated every basketball team he's been a part of,
Yeah.
from high school all the way through pros. Name one person. Everybody jokes about how Michael got cut from his high school team. They didn't cut Kareem.
Right.
He took him to state every year.
Yeah.
Dang.
Who else you put above him?
Yeah, who's the other person?
Oh, I would put Wilt Chamberlain above him.
You put Wilt above him?
Now,
yeah.
why though? I mean, I'm not against that. I'm just wondering, like, what's the?
Okay, I got two reasons. Okay, first one, 100. Okay, 100. You can't argue with that.
Right.
Okay, 100 versus 63. I don't know. Okay, and the second thing is, when Michael Jordan was playing, they changed the rules to help Michael Jordan. They took away the hand check rule. They loosened up the carrying rule and the traveling rule. If you watch him, there was a lot of traveling and carrying going on that they didn't let a lot of people get away with before that. Okay, but with Wilt, they changed a bunch of rules to limit him.
Yeah, because
right?
he was dominating.
He was so dominant. They changed all kind of rules to make him less, and he's still putting up numbers like that.
3-second rule, right? It wasn't a 3-second rule before him.
Yep. And also the goaltending, he used to stick his hands through the basket, swipe stuff away.
Yeah, I feel like he's so dominating that they don't even put him in the category of greatest sometimes. And I don't understand why. I'm like, he was getting 100 points. Some games he was averaging 30 rebounds a season and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, it was ridiculous. His numbers were ridiculous.
He has the single game record for rebounds, right? And everybody's like, oh, big deal. You know who he got that record against? Who he set that record against? Bill Russell.
Oh, wow.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, see? That's what I'm saying. He's one of them cats. He scored 50 points a game. Like, he's averaged 50 points a game.
Yeah.
And then everybody said, oh, he's a black hole. He's a ball hog. You know what he did next year? The year after he got criticized? He led the league in assists.
Yep, I know.
Okay, so he just kind of said, okay, you don't think I can pass? I'll lead the league.
Yeah, from what I understand, he was an all-around ball player.
Yeah, he was so good.
So, you know.
And he was a freak of nature. So anyway, people argue with me with that, but I'm just saying, you know, everybody loves Michael Jordan because number one, he had style. He was pretty. He was dominant. He was a vicious basketball player. But, you know, he's small. He's smaller than Kareem and Will. And nobody wants to like put a big guy like that up at the top.
Yeah, they usually don't. Yeah.
Right.
Interesting. Listen, I know what I said. I'm not trying to drag this out, but I need to ask this question because I feel like I can't leave this conversation with your expertise and perspective on basketball without asking this question. What is your view on LeBron in regards to the whole topic of GOAT?
Okay, so
I'm not even going to specifically say Mike or Kobe. Just
right.
He's yeah.
All right, let me just say this about LeBron, right? I have a great deal of respect for him as a human being. This guy came straight out of high school. He said so much pressure put on him.
And he exceeded expectations.
This guy did everything right. You know, and everybody talks about it. Was funny, man. I remember hearing an interview, like everybody saying, hey, you know, he's really, really cheap. Like he doesn't want to spend money. And I'm like, man, his mom taught him right. You know, it's like he wants to spend money not on frivolous things, but on things that matter. He has his own production company now. Right. And he had set up a school. Like he's being cheap, not to be cheap. He's being cheap because he knows where he wants to spend his money. As a human being, I respect that. Right. And then as a basketball player, I'm like, okay, he's a pretty dominant force. Okay. But I watched him play, you know, at Staples a couple times. And man, it's funny. When I was watching Kobe or Michael and the ball was in their hands, everybody's like, oh, dang. And they're like watching, right? Every time LeBron gets the ball in his hands at the end of the game and we need to win, I'm like, don't shoot it. Don't shoot it. And I'm just like, okay, if that's my reaction, then I feel like he's not going to be ranked up high, compared to like Jordan and Kobe and some of the others, right? So I see it. I like that game. I watched it versus I forget who it was. I think it was Atlanta, and we were down 1, and he went to the line. He missed both free throws.
Yep.
And it was like a minute left. So I'm just like, okay, he's great. Like when the game's not on the line. But I think he needs someone on the line. Like when they won that championship for Cleveland, Kyrie's the one who took him there.
Oh my God, Kyrie!
Yeah, he hit that dagger,
shots.
right? That's what I'm saying. Yeah. And again, it wasn't that. It's basically LeBron did all the heavy lifting and then set Kyrie up for that moment, right?
Yeah.
But like I said, he's dancing around 3-point line, clock's ticking down. You're down 1 or 2 points. I'm like, please don't shoot that 3-point shot. Please don't do that. Please don't do that. And again, that's my internal reaction, right?
I feel you on that. I love LeBron. I do think he's one of the greatest, but I do not have the same excitement and anxiety that I used to have when Kobe has the ball toward the end of the game. Yeah, it's true. But it's like you said, I think you can credit LeBron for that. He does the heavy lifting. And if you give him a weapon on the team, though, that can hit that last shot, he's going to win. Yeah.
No, that's my opinion. That's my opinion.
Nice. Yeah, I couldn't leave that conversation without, in one sense, resting my case. I just,
right.
I don't, we gonna have to like communicate on the side. I'm gonna send you a friend request on Facebook because I like your perspective. You hit us with stuff that nobody else is hitting us with. So I appreciate that. So let's get into this episode.
Okay.
Thank you for your opinion. I'm so glad that we can all agree on this because it's never pretty when we can't agree.
Right.
But I like it still.
Yeah, I do too.
Disagreements are more fun to watch it.
Yes, they are. They really are, So I'll hit you with this question that, we've asked all of our fathers that have come on. Dre likes to just dive into the deep end. And I'm like, hey, let's swim there. Let's kind of just build our way, to the deep end. So, I say let's start off in 3-4 feet. We can kind of walk and start swimming and get there. So what is fatherhood like for you?
Wow, that wasn't deep. Okay.
So I guess for you it is. But, I guess we all.
Well, and I tell people, that's a complicated question because, our situation is not what the average person who's parenting experience. Okay. So for me, growing up, I got married when I was 30. So, compared to some of my friends, that was a little bit later. I know people nowadays are getting married later. And, my wife and I were still in the midst of building our careers and stuff. And we really didn't think about starting to have kids till I was in my mid-30s, But by that time, it was bizarre, man. She got pregnant one time and then she miscarried, right? And then we couldn't get pregnant after that. So she, got checked out by the physicians.
How did y'all kind of deal with the miscarriage? Sorry to cut you off.
It was kind of tough, because you start making plans, right? You start thinking about what life is going to be like. You start dreaming. And then when the miscarriage happens, I remember that day. It was hard for me. I couldn't imagine how my wife was feeling, I mean, I tried to be there as best I could, but I wasn't her. She was really having a hard time, torn up about it, and I just felt helpless. There was nothing I could do, And we made it, but then what made it harder was we couldn't get pregnant after that.
Mhm.
So she had all the stuff, and she's fine. She's fine, and found out, as it turns out, that I'm not fine. So I don't like to
Mm.
share this, right? My guy. They said my guys don't move. So
Mm.
we started thinking about doing in vitro and all that stuff. And man, we weren't rich. We didn't have no money. So it's like, just to try it, it's like, it was $25,000 back then.
Oh
Try it.
gosh.
And there was no
What?
guarantees, right? So we're like, oh my gosh. And I know she wanted to have kids, and I just felt so bad. I felt like, as a husband, on multiple levels, that I let her down.
Dang.
I know it's stuff I can't control, but you still can't help feeling that way.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Nah.
So that was kind of how it was, like, kind of the entry point, I guess, for me to even consider what fatherhood was like, or would be like, and didn't anticipate those kinds of things happening or coming up,
Mhm.
and then yeah, so the beginnings were complicated, and so leading it up to today, you guys know that we adopted our two boys. They were siblings, and that's hard. That was hard too, so I don't know how else to answer this question, except my experience with fatherhood is, it's kind of like death to my dreams and death to my preconceptions,
Yeah.
and
Man.
just trying to have to deal with what's there, what's in front of you for real, and having to reconstruct your reality that way. So sorry if I got deep on that, but
No.
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 No. You
No.
was
No.
perfectly fine. You was perfectly fine.
all right.
No. That was definitely interesting. Um. Dang, there was a question I had I wanted to ask you, but well, I'll just move on to the other question. Is what was the so was and was the motivation behind adopting that your wife wanted kids, or was there maybe a little more to it?
Yes. Okay, so I'm gonna be completely 100% real here. So I think between the two of us, she wanted kids more than I wanted kids.
Mm.
All right.
Mm.
And part of it, okay, so I have to backtrack just a little bit. So my wife has endured some tragedy in her life. She lost her mother. Her mother passed away when she was younger. I think she was in, just around the end of college, around that time when her mom passed, right? And then shortly after we got married, her sister passed.
Wow.
And her sister passed giving birth
Oh wow.
to, and I think she had 6 kids. So what happened was, when her sister passed and they were in Korea, it was decided that my wife and I would take custody of the 2 oldest kids, her nephew and niece. And the plan was, because all her kids are U.S. citizens, because her sister was a U.S. citizen, and the plan was for the father to bring the whole family over here, because the rest of the family was here and we could provide support, right, for the
Okay.
kids. So we took custody of her nephew and niece for a couple of years, and when she asked if we could take care of them for a while, I said, sure, yeah, no problem. And then they got here and confronted immediately with, I'm just not a good parent. And so it was extremely difficult. So that 2-year period of time, while we did take care of her nephew and niece, I felt like, and this is going to be a theme that I'm going to talk about, I think I went to bed every night feeling that I failed horribly at being a guardian or whatever. And and that was it was an intensely difficult time internally for me. Okay. So then when my wife had this lead on the sibling pair, and she's like, I'm really thinking that this might be someone might want to adopt. My immediate reaction was going back to her nephew and niece, thinking, I can't do this.
Mhm.
That thing was temporary. I'm like, really? I'm going to be the same way, failing and horrible and everything. And
What made you feel like you failed with your nephew and niece? What kind of challenges did you have?
wow, okay, that's a good question. I think, all right, so as Christians, we're called to love people, right? And when
Mhm.
we talk about love, we talk about the emotional component of it, right? I feel a certain way towards you, right? When you say you love your wife, there's a certain positive emotion attached to it, right? When you say you
Mhm.
love your kids, it's like, there's that, oh, I want to hug you. I just want to, and I'm assuming this because I didn't really have that part. I do feel love and affection towards my wife, but when my nephew and niece came, I didn't feel that. I didn't feel
Mhm.
any positive emotions, right? And that was hard. I was trying to do the right thing, but I didn't feel like I was being loving, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
So that was frustrating for me because I just like, how come I can't find it within myself? And I would confide in people, and they would say, well, they're not your kids. It's going to be different when they're your own kids, right? And I'm just like, why? Why would it be different? Like, shouldn't I? But it didn't, and so that chapter of my life was really hard because I just realized that no matter how much I wanted to, there's a part of me that I couldn't manufacture that kind of positive feelings,
Mhm.
and it was a difficult time, so we did willingly take care of them because that was the right thing to do, and these kids needed some place to be, but it taught me, from that experience, I became terrified of parenthood because of that experience.
Mhm. So when you got into the new experiences, those same fears came back when the question came up to adopting the
Well,
two
I was
boys you have
hoping I
now.
was hoping it wouldn't. I was hoping it would be different, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then we meet them, and things kind of move pretty quickly. And then you know, you ever hear that saying, wherever you go, there you are?
Actually,
Mhm.
I've never heard that.
Yes.
It
It
makes sense
basically
though.
says, it's like, if you have problems, moving location ain't gonna get rid of your problems because you take them with you. So wherever you go, there you are.
Right.
Your problems come follow you because it's part of who you are. So I felt like even though I had some years and some perspectives, I still had the same issues.
Right. Right.
So yeah, it's still tough. But this time, because of the adoption, it was permanent, right? It wasn't like we're just basically taking custody and caring for them until their parent could come back. This is permanent. This is forever.
So I got a question.
Yeah.
Um, did your wife feel the same way about your parenting skills that you felt about them? Like, did she feel like you were failing as a parent, or was this all internal?
I would confide in her. I would tell her,
Mm-hmm.
you know, uh, and I would say, I feel like I'm failing. I use those words,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think she necessarily would respond to it. She would hear it. I mean, she could see I was struggling.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I
What
know what
did
kind
she?
of person. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna ask, what did she do? Because you said that you felt like she could see you struggling. Uh, what did she do to kind of help you through your struggle?
I don't think I don't think that was kind of her goal, to help me through my struggle. And I'm not trying to make her out to be an insensitive person. That's not what it was. That's not what I mean. I think her goal in all of this is how to make us a healthier family. And so, and I agree with her in this respect. My own struggle about parenting shouldn't really dictate how, or my commitment to parenting. You know what I mean?
That's good.
So I don't think resolving my inner struggle was necessarily the top of our priority, because the kids have their own history and their own needs, and so I think it was just kind of this constant. It just felt like I was struggling so much just to keep my head above water, and just trying to do the right thing every day, not always succeeding, but that was kind of the struggle. And so, I think even to this day, I still struggle with it. Probably not as intensely as I used to, but it's still a struggle. I mean, DeAndre and I talked. It was funny. I called him up on, what was it, Saturday? I called you up?
Yeah. No, Sunday.
2 days ago, right? And I just said, man, I just had the worst weekend with my kids. Like, I can't do this. I can't do this podcast. I'm just eminently not qualified to talk about fatherhood in any respect. So, and then, through the conversation, DeAndre, you said there are probably a lot of people out there who struggle too, and probably need to hear that story. So I'm like, okay, I'll be real. I'm not going to lie. I do struggle. It don't mean that I'm going to quit. It just means that, I'm just real about where I'm at right now. It's just, it's a constant struggle.
Yeah, man. And that's kind of how I felt. You know what I mean? Like, I know that everybody's story is different and nobody's story is perfect. You know what I mean? But
right.
I knew you was going to keep it real. So I wanted that. I got another question.
All right.
What's your approach to discipline?
Man, discipline. Okay. This is one of them areas that
Mark, are you still there, or are you just off the camera?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh, okay.
Well, let me tell you about discipline. Okay. So, I don't know how what your relationships with your father was like. But I had a very, very rough childhood. And I remember saying to myself all the time, my dad, God rest his soul, he passed, a couple years ago, but he did beat me, and not just spanking, it was kind of a tough way to grow up. And so I remember every time I would say, I'm never going to be like him. I'm never going to be like him. I want to be different, right? Funny thing is, you only have one dad. Well, I did anyway, right? So even though I said I was never going to be like that, that's the only model I had of how to be a father.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when I have now kids, that's what wants to come out, right? That's the automatic part that wants to come out, the anger, and it's not the discipline that wants to come out, it's the punishment that wants to come out.
There's a difference. Right? I'm glad you brought that. Yeah, there is a difference.
But that's what wants to come out, because that's all I had. That's all that was put in me. So for me, I just working so hard to not always succeeding, by the way, not always succeeding. So, but working so hard to say, okay, discipline, what does that look like? Instead of me just trying to vent my anger. Right. And I think that's been a real, I mean, when you talk about discipline, it's not just disciplining your children, it's disciplining yourself.
Right.
Yeah. And that's hard. That's really hard to do. But what I try to do, especially in recent times, is, my kids are at the age now where they're very close to becoming independent, right? They're 18 and 19. And so my whole perspective is, do I feel like they have what they need internally to make it, right? To be a good citizen, to be a good friend, to be a good neighbor, to be a good boyfriend. You know what I mean? Like all those things that are going through my head. And so whenever they have moments where they're not doing the right things, I try to think about it that way and try to offer some measure of perspective for them. And they don't always listen, but you know, what can you do? That's all if that's all you got.
I'm sorry, I got a street sweeper in my background.
Hey, tell them that they interrupting that session.
Hey, they got to clean the streets.
So,
no, I agree with that though.
Yeah. Question for you. What do you do to teach your kids in regards to honoring you, and how do you or what methods do you use to get that message across to them so that they can understand it and be able to apply that?
Oh man, I don't even think that far ahead, man. So I think it's mostly about respect for me. Okay. So if one of them or both of them are disrespectful towards their mom, my wife, I'll try to point that out. I said, you know, I understand what you're saying. You could have said that in a different way. That's not so mean, because I keep telling them, I said, one person, the one person on this planet who would step in front of a bullet for you, that's your mom, right? So so at least make an effort. I'm not saying you have to be perfect. I'm just saying at least make an effort to respect her, right? And so I think, that it's not a blank slate. They got a lot of other issues going on underneath. So it's just more of me trying to be consistent in my message and expectations of them. And then at least for me, I tell them, okay, if you're going to be respectful towards me, then you have to be honest with me. That's the thing that I'm working on right now with both of them. It's just being honest. Because that's kind of a big thing for me in terms of respect from anyone, right? And but yeah, I don't really think about how they can honor. That's not even part of my process right now. It's just more basic than that.
Interesting. Okay.
I think in regards to having them respect you, I know there's some moments where you kind of feel like, like some of it should be automatic, right? Like you shouldn't have to ask for it as much as you do.
Yeah, this is the hard thing, right? Because as educators, as parents, right? Because especially when you have toddlers and stuff, you're a lot of what you do, as an example, right? They pick up on, right? And they learn from at a very young age, right? So they'll pick up on your mannerisms, the way you talk, and how you joke and act around, But we never had that, because we adopted them when they were much older, right? So okay. I'm trying to be an example in terms of, this is how I want to treat my wife. This is how what I do. This is how I want you to treat your mom. You know what I mean? But they don't always,
I get it.
Yeah, but they don't always pick up on that, right? And I don't know if it's just them, but they tend to not watch what you're doing. Like for me, I used to coach basketball and stuff, so a lot of times, you're showing some kids what to do, and then other kids will be watching, and then they'll start doing it without you even have to tell them what to do. Because they're observing, right? And then other kids, like you taught 5 kids the same thing, and then you get to the 6th kid, and I said, "Did you see what I was doing over here?" And they're like, "No." So there's no, then you have to kind of teach them all over again. But that part, for some reason, isn't there to a large degree. So I really have to kind of spell it out for them. Like, okay, you know, when you said this to your mom or did this, you know, to me, it's kind of disrespectful, right? And so we need to turn that around and say, well, you can still say what you want to say, but say it this way or do it with this attitude. And that's hard. That's hard for me because
so you
you're
do
right.
still allow them to try to get out the feelings, but just not the way it's the delivery that you work on.
Yeah. Well, it comes out sometimes, you know, in very negative ways, but then you just have to say, you know, at first I was very reactionary, right? It's like, how dare you say that? And then you kind of try to stomp it out, and that don't work. So, just listening, I'm like, okay, what is it that you're trying to say? Like, you said something and got me a little hot, but what are you trying to say? Because that's not the best way to say it. If you really want me to hear, don't trigger me, communicate with me, right? But go ahead.
What did you do to kind of transition yourself from reacting to how they're maybe reacting or you know, just kind of getting out their feelings to now being able to respond to that and saying, hey, you know, maybe I didn't necessarily like how you delivered that. I need you to kind of figure that out and then deliver it differently.
Okay, so that process is long and painful. You know, I know in some Christian circles, right? I know in some Christian circles, it's kind of taboo to talk about going to therapy, you know, to talk to somebody about stuff. And I'm gonna tell you, I've been in therapy for a long time, off and on. Okay, so different points in my life, all dated going all the way back.
We talked about this on the episode before. We are not against therapy.
Okay, good.
Yeah, for real.
So I've been in therapy, starting all right after I finished college, right? So about 22, 23 is when I started, and just kind of helping me through different portions of what I struggle with, and off and on, and even up until coronavirus, I've been seeing a therapist. I haven't seen him in a while, but primarily what I would go there for is to kind of process through why I'm reacting the way I'm reacting, and what is it actually I want to accomplish in those interactions other than me venting, right? So it's hard because, you know, he calls BS on me whenever I'm trying to cover stuff up, and then he'll call me out and says, you know,
the therapist.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you know, if a therapist won't cuss at me, if a therapist won't call me out on my BS, I won't go back to him.
So, side question for that.
Right.
Have you ever maybe like kind of like set the therapist up to see if they would call you out on it?
No.
Or you just
I mean, I just start sharing, and then if they just kind of, you know, try to soft pedal me, I'm like, okay, well, I'll probably try to look for somebody else. Because I you know, I tell them right up front, I'm no nonsense. I ain't gonna play games. I'm gonna tell you how it is, and and why I'm here is I want you to help me get better, right? And so I'm not one of those people that if you get in my face and call me out, I'm not gonna get mad at you. I'll be like, okay, yeah, thank you, man. That I gotta think about that, you know, and because this is one of them things, like, you just waste time if you're gonna oppose what people say to you. Right? If you actually take the time to process it, you know, you're making that process more efficient. At least in my mind, I don't got a whole much more time left, so I got to continue to work on getting better.
Right? Interesting.
Hey, real quick question. What was the first thing that made you go to therapy? Like when you were young, what was the first thing that?
Well, interestingly enough, it was dealing with all the anger from my broken relationship with my dad.
Oh,
really?
Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So just trying to figure out, because I knew, like, I became a Christian, like I mean, depending on how you want to look at it, I really began to follow Christ in college. Like, seriously. So I seriously started reading.
Wait,
let
me say this real quick to give a little bit more context. Mark, I know we often talk about breaking the stigmas and the rules of religion. This guy right here is a master at it. He
Oh,
taught
nice,
me a lot.
nice.
What I
I
know
am ready
of
to learn
moving
right
out
now.
of religion.
Okay.
I'm taking my notepad out on my old iPhone, and I'm setting up for a new note to take notes. So I am ready to learn, Sensei.
They all like that. All right. No, but it's when I first started taking my faith seriously, and one of the verses that always jabbed at me was, forgive if you want your Father in heaven to forgive you, right? I'm paraphrasing it, right? If you don't forgive, then God won't forgive you, that kind of thing. So I was like, okay, well, every time that verse comes up, my dad would come to mind. Like, I got to forgive him for all those things, right? But I couldn't, right? Because when you forgive someone, you're trying to release this, but the whole time I'm still holding on to that anger. I'm still holding on to this idea, like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
The negative energy was constantly there. So I needed help. I needed help to have someone talk me through and walk me through what does it mean to kind of process it, instead of, forgiveness is not always just black and white. It's not like a light switch where, you kill my kid and okay, I'm forgiving you. It's not like that. It's like, it's so painful what you did to me that I have to forgive you in pieces,
Yeah.
and I had to learn that was okay, that I could do this over the course of many years, which it did take. It took many years for me to kind of, peel off the layers of the brokenness and the rage and all that stuff. And
it's not really taught like that. It's kind of taught as if it has to be this one step, this one
right,
miraculous move that you make, and it's
and that's
all
why
over.
I struggled that, because whenever they said, oh, you got to forgive from your heart, and you couldn't, you just feel like you're a failure or a fake,
Right.
And so that's why I started going to see a therapist. And again, that they're not worried about judging you whether you're a good Christian or not. They're just there to help you take small steps, right?
Did you
Right.
get criticized from people in the Christian community for going?
For some people, yeah. For some people, yeah.
Yeah.
Not, I didn't share it widely. Especially, check this out. I don't know what it's like in the Black community, but in the Asian community, there's a stigma, because when you say you're going to therapy, they automatically think, oh, you're crazy.
Really?
Right? Oh yeah, they just, yeah, crazy, or there's something wrong with you, and that's why I just don't share it.
Interesting.
I do now because I'm not ashamed of it. It's my process, and I think it's healthy, and I think different people, would benefit from just being a part of it for a while, just to gain some tools. But yeah, it was stigmatized. So not just the Christian community, but the Asian Christian community. I was kind of not sharing 100% about that.
Wow.
Let me ask this question before we get into the last, little bit that we have left.
Okay.
How did you? Well, okay. So this is kind of a two-part question, actually. So one is, what were people kind of saying to you about, the ones that were, criticizing you about going to therapy? Like, what were things that they were saying? And then how did you deal with that? Like, how did you navigate that? Because you're already dealing with this thing over here, and you
Right.
trying to get your freedom and peace of mind and stuff through therapy and going through your process and stuff. And on top of that, you dealing with being a father, having your feelings about all of that, and you're married, and you have your whole life over here, and you got these outside people, talking and criticizing, So how did you kind of deal with that criticism?
Well, when I was younger, I just didn't tell people. Right? Nowadays, when I tell people, I kind of decide I just don't care what you think about that, because I know I've been doing it for decades, off and on, and it's been working. I am healthier. I mean, there was a lot of personal damage and dysfunction I had to and still have to work through. But I'm committed. I'm committed to getting better. So I don't care what people say. But again, sometimes early on, I really struggled with the dynamic where people were saying, "Oh no, Jesus is all you need." Jesus. If you pray hard enough, you don't need no therapy.
Right.
And so then I remember feeling like, oh, my faith is weak, or I'm a failure, or this or that. But I'm just like, you know what? They don't know my process. They don't know what I'm going through. So I'm just going to keep doing what I know is helping me. And they could think whatever they want. But in the beginning, like I said, when people's approval meant a lot more, it was a lot harder.
Nice.
I got one question real quick. How much time we got? Okay. I'm still good. So we've had a lot of talks about spirituality. What is some of the main things that you want your kids to know about God?
Oh man. Okay. This is a hard one because so when I was pastoring a church, it was in Pasadena. We planted a church back there. That was during that time that we adopted these kids. And I wanted them. All right. So I've known a lot of pastors' kids growing up. Okay. One of my earliest experiences of a pastor's kid was when I was like 5 or 6. And this kid would go around and beat people up and bully me, around the church.
And he was a pastor's kid?
He was a pastor's kid.
Wow.
And I hated him, right? I hated him. Years later, I find out that he committed suicide.
Oh,
whoa.
wow.
Right. Years later. And I've heard stories of that kind of thing happening a lot. That pastors' kids are very unhappy and kind of dysfunctional in a lot of ways.
I've heard that too.
And so I didn't want that for my kids. I didn't want them to come into a situation like that. So I told them, I'm a pastor and I have a church, and I want you to find a way to fall in love with God, but I'm not going to require it. Okay. So I want you to find your way. And, that, of course, brought criticism upon me. You got to teach them the right way. And I'm like, I don't want them to hate God because they hate church.
Dang.
So, yeah. So I let them, even now, they're kind of loose about it. They'll ask me questions here and there. But for me, the biggest thing I want them to learn about God is how he cares about other people. Right. And the coronavirus thing was a good way. We wear a mask so that we don't want to get other people sick, or the whole BLM movement and all that stuff is happening, with police brutality. I tell them, God cares about that. God cares about these people who are being oppressed or being, bullied or killed or unjustly. Those are the things. So I want them to see at least the kind of value set that God embraces, and I'm hoping that would help them understand, okay, this is it, to follow God would look like this, not about following rules or going to church, but it's about aligning yourself with God's heart and living out your life that way, right? So that's where I want them to start, and that's kind of how I approach it.
Dang.
Man, you dropped a bar right there, saying,
yeah, man, I was trying to laugh with that.
Because they hate church. We're gonna have to bring you on for another episode straight up about that. Straight up about leaving religion for real, man. Because
I see. I need to get into that with you because there's a lot of personal stuff that I'm dealing with right now, and so when he told me that part of your story, I was like, yo, I need to hear about this because that's a very interesting that's a very interesting perspective and story. So we got a few minutes left, so we don't have time to get into that. So we definitely gonna bring you back on. We'll work out some details and things like that and schedule for that because I think that's a very important thought, I would say, to take into consideration and things like that. for people who have kids and, you know, really trying to figure out how do you really get your kids to understand relationship with God and, you know, what that actually looked like. And
like
yeah,
outside of
just that.
church.
Yeah, like, because it's not just going to this building and all this other stuff to worship. That's great. I think it's definitely needed. As far as, you know, for community and all of that. But as far as just solely just relationship with God, that's not necessarily what that's about. That's that's for community. That's for us to come together and then impact the world. Relationship with God is beyond that. So we're gonna have to definitely bring you back home so we can discuss some things. So for all of our listening audience, we have now come up with a new game, so to speak. Right now, I'm calling it Quick Lightning, where basically all of our guests, they come on, they pick 3 different categories of their choosing that we have. And basically, it's a game of this or that, and they answer those questions. It's 5 questions per, 5 questions per category. And so our great special guest here has chosen 3 categories, which are music, food, and movies. And then particularly with music, it's rock and roll. So there's no explanation. There's no time for explanation on why you chose this one over this one or anything like that. It's just, listen, it is what it is. You got this one or that one, and we're going to get through it. And also, you know, this is a way for the audience and us to get to know you a little bit better. So, Paul, you ready?
All
right, man. So we're going to start off with, actually, I'm going to start off with music. I'm going to start off with the music first, and then we'll hit food, and then we'll get into movies.
Okay.
All right, so I'm gonna just run through them. All right, you ready?
I'm ready.
And Paul, for music, he chose the genre of rock and roll. So we're going to see. We got 5 of them. Here we go. The Beatles or the Rolling Stones?
Beatles.
Led Zeppelin or AC/DC?
Led Zeppelin.
Punk rock or classic rock?
Classic.
U2 or ZZ Top?
U2.
Heavy metal or indie rock?
Indie rock.
Tacos or burritos?
Tacos.
Rice or chow mein?
Rice.
Domino's or Pizza Hut?
Pizza Hut.
Lay's chips or Ruffles?
Ruffles.
Hot wings or barbecue wings?
Hot wings.
Fast and Furious series or X-Men series?
Fast and Furious.
Drumline or Stomp the Yard?
Drumline.
Meet the Fockers or Grown Ups?
Grown Ups.
Avengers or Justice League?
Avengers.
Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Trek.
Nice.
Wow.
Nice. When he said Avengers, I was like, my guy. We're good. We're really good. If you would say Justice League, we would have had to talk. So listen, man. Definitely.
The grown-ups and Meet the Fockers one was hard, man, because I love that series.
I know.
Like,
right?
I know. Both of them were good. I said, I'm going to have to make this real good. Yeah, man. So listen, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast, flipping the switch on this thing called Fatherhood. Definitely appreciate you. You brought something to the table that was definitely needed. You know, there are plenty of families out there that have they have adopted kids, you know what I mean? And so our aim with this series was to help fathers in different areas, because you got single fathers, you got married fathers, you have fathers with adopted kids, you have blended family fathers. And even though we didn't get to all of those different types, I do feel like in some way, shape, or form, we've been able to help all types of fathers out there. So, man, thank you so much for being kind enough to, you know, to share your story, be transparent. Man, definitely appreciate it. For all of our listening audience, please tap in with this man. He is definitely somebody that if I had that type of relationship too, I would call him my mentor too. You know, so maybe one day in the future he might take me under his wing as well. But man, thank you so much for coming on. I can't say that enough, man. I'm looking forward to going back to this and really listening to everything you're saying, because you said some stuff, man, that just like, yo, I feel like really just it was stuff that needed to be said, things that fathers needed to hear, whether you're married or single or, adopted family, blended family, it doesn't matter. I feel like there was something just a little bit for everybody with this episode. And so I really do appreciate
there's even
it.
like some mental notes like still stuck in my head about like the commitment to parenting over your feelings and stuff like, man.
Yeah. I got convicted on that part right there.
Yeah.
I got convicted on that part right there. I said, man. I said, okay. So, thanks, Paul, for that conviction. I don't appreciate it.
All right. Not a problem.
No, but seriously, man, I really felt that one. And again, thank you so much for coming on the show. With that said, we're gonna get up out of here. Shout out to all of our patrons and to all of our
if y'all got
audience.
any questions about adoption, any questions about parenting, be sure to hit us up. Hit us up in the comments. Hit us up on the email. Any questions you got, we want to know. Any
questions, comments, anything that you want to add to this episode. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, Paul is one man that has his perspective and things like that. But you guys might have an experience or experiences and perspective that, can add to that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
If you have that, because at the end of the day, this is a community. So, what you comment or what you post, you know what I mean, in the comment section, others can read that as well.
Yeah, and we all share light. We all got the ability to share light.
Yeah. So again, remember, this is not just our podcast. This is y'all podcast. We flip the switch on everything. And with that said, we are about out of here.
We out.
That's terrible.
Watch me flip the switch like this. Watch me flip the switch like this.
I flipped the switch ever since I put the emphasis on the infinite. Took my pain, flipped that into bliss. Now my life's so vigorous, no more impotence. And yeah, the victory's in him, so it's imminent. Possibilities infinite, they like where he went. Cause all things have become new, and it's evident. Now his presence in my life is so prevalent. Went from filthy rags to now I'm fresher than a peppermint. His word light up.